Thank you, Dr. Chitra and AAOS and ARC for inviting me to be part of this prestigious symposium. I'm sure there's a lot of audiences are really large. So my talk is on microbiology workup of a corneal ulcer. So keeping in mind that the audience is a mixture of mostly postgraduates and maybe some practicing ophthalmologists, I've combined uh, points which will be interesting to both of them. So in this talk, basically, I'm going to be talking about the importance of microbiology confirmation in infectious keratitis, conventional microbiology techniques, including sample collection. Oops, sorry. இது close பண்ணுங்க. இதானே. Molecular techniques, and then also the future of diagnosis in infectious keratitis. Since all these youngsters, you definitely have to be aware of what is the future in infectious keratitis. Is there anything exciting in the pipeline? So to begin with, anybody who's dealing with infections and any ocular infections for that matter, as Dr. Nikhil nicely pointed out, and he really put the whole topic in perspective in his talk. What is important is obviously to have knowledge of the common infections. And in this, what is most important to have a knowledge of what are the different organism spectrums causing these infections, especially in eye. We know that there are certain organisms which can cause only certain infections. So that knowledge is really important, especially in terms of if you want thinking of starting empirical treatment. And mode of transmission and acquiring this infection. Again, Dr. Nikhil had a slide on this that will really give a very important clue as to what this organism could be. You know, like all organisms have got their own niche of growth, like whether it is waterborne or whether it's from the soil or dust or whether it's a commensal or whether it's a pathogenic. So those things are very important by knowing how the patient acquired the infection. Antibiotic susceptibility, I will not be talking in this talk since it's a very broad topic, but it's important to know what drugs to be tested for, what is the interpretation of the susceptibility report which the lab gives you. Do you consider, because most of these reports are based on serum concentration. So that's a very important point for the clinicians to be aware of. And ultimately, microbiology infections are definitely preventable. So is there a scope for prevention in these conditions? So coming to the confirmation of etiology, now among the few ocular emergencies, these are some of the infections which are definitely considered as emergencies. So you would not want to wait for a microbiology confirmation. Empirical treatment is definitely would be started before you even consider sending for culture or waiting for the culture report. But this slide, I wanted to put up these pictures because this is not uncommon in most of the practices in which the clinicians might encounter, especially our population. Patients might come very late or taking multiple drugs. So the pictures all distorted and you cannot come to a definitive diagnosis and you would definitely need some microbiology confirmation. So the importance of a lab confirmation is because we are dealing with a large number of fungus in our country. And if you want to pick up any novel organisms like Nocardia, atypical Mycobacterium, Acanthamoeba, for epidemiological reasons and to see the sensitivity, you would need it. Now, coming to the actual laboratory techniques, the microbiology workup. So normally we can do a combination of everything. So we can have a conventional setup with the molecular diagnostic methods also if available. So starting with the direct smear, which is the most reliable, quick, rapid, high sensitivity. Many publications are there, and culture on standard media and molecular diagnostics, including conventional PCR or next generation sequencing, which I just have one slide to explain what it is about. So the first step towards any microbiology diagnosis is sample collection. And I cannot emphasize the importance of sample collection, not only for ocular infections, for any infection for that matter, the sample is the most important step, obviously. And especially in eye corneal ulcers, since we are dealing with a small amount of sample, and most of the organisms we encounter are very fastidious in nature, especially pneumococcus. So if you don't see a lot of pneumococcal ulcer, it could really be because there is not direct inoculation. And this laboratory criteria for this Cumitech 1998 is a very good source for learning this. So this slide, especially for the postgraduates, you can use this kind of flow chart to answer any of your questions in the exam. So this is the route which any sample goes through. You do a direct microscopy, gram stain, KOH, calcofluor if available, culture on all these medias, and molecular diagnostics. So this is the whole spectrum of medias which anybody. So in a ideal world, if you have enough of specimen and enough of, you obviously can culture all these medias. Obviously, we don't live in an ideal world. So the basic thing which you can use is a blood agar, sabrods, or a potato dextrose agar. Non-nutrient if you're thinking of acanthamoeba. And gram stain, the minimum is, I'm sorry, the smear is gram stain and 10% KOH. So at least these four are the minimum media which should definitely be used, which could recover majority of the organisms. Now, the direct microscopy. So this slide is actually for everybody who's listening to this. I really want to stress the importance of direct. Don't even need a lab person to do this. So if an ophthalmologist or a cornea person can train themselves to do this, uh, up to even 80% of the time you can pick up something on direct microscopy. Very simple, sensitive, and easily you can train anybody. Now, this laboratory criteria for definitive infection. So any lab report which is going to show, which you're going to use, has to fulfill this criteria. So the organism, especially if the report is going to come as a commensal, like a coagulase negative staph or a diphtheroid, if the report is going to have a commensal or a normal flora, it should follow this criteria: growth on two media or confluent growth at the inoculation site. So it's very important to remember this criteria. Now I just put up some pictures of some common organisms, as this could be asked in the OSCEs also. So this is the gram-positive cocci in pairs with a capsule, followed by alpha hemolytic streptococci, beta hemolytic staphylococcus with organism in groups. And this is a classic picture of fungal filaments on KOH, calcofluor, gram stain, showing a broad septate beaded hyphae. And this is nocardia, both on gram stain and acid fast, and the culture plate of nocardia, since we see a large number of nocardial infection. Acanthamoeba, I don't know whether it's be asked in the exams mostly, but the classical typical appearance of hexagonal double-walled cyst. And this is on the culture plate actually. Microsporidia can easily be picked up on gram stain, a little bit bigger than a cocci and more rounder than a, and it has these polar bodies in the at one side. And there's a calcofluor picture of Microsporidia. Now the classical picture of a pythium is, this is a gram stain in which is sparsely a septate. It's not totally aseptate, partially septate, and this typical folding ribbon. I don't know whether people can appreciate this, but this is that typical folding ribbon of this hyphae which is described, and the corresponding culture of the pythium on the plate, which is like dry, leathery, and stuck on to the surface. It grows very well on blood agar. So blood agar is more than enough, and it grows quite rapidly. So within 48 hours to 3 days, you get a culture of pythium. Clinical correlation is another very important aspect which every clinician should consider. So I just put up one example of how the clinicians might think it's fungus and the culture grows bacteria, and vice versa. Clinically, the clinician suspected to be bacterial infection because of whatever reason, and the culture grew pythium. Now, coming to the molecular diagnosis. As we know, a molecular diagnosis, the PCR has been around for nearly 20 years now, and is more or less well established as a diagnostic tool. So detects the presence of nucleic acid, especially in COVID times. Now everybody's familiar with this RT-PCR. It's especially useful for organisms which are fastidious, difficult to grow, more sensitive, and ideal for scarce quantity of specimens like our ocular specimens, which we deal with. And these are the steps in PCR: denaturation, dehybridization, elongation, and this goes about for 25 to 30 cycles. And if you want to know the species, then you can go by sequencing. And the different types: uniplex, nested PCR. Real-time PCR is much better because you can avoid contamination, and most importantly, differentiate between a latent and active infection. And this slide is really important because many people are now tending to use PCR as a diagnostic method. We really have to remember, because of the extremely high sensitivity, we might get a lot of false positives. And if the PCR is going to be very specific, then that leads to a lot of false negatives. and cannot differentiate between active and latent infection. Now, coming to the future of diagnosis in microbial keratitis with alternative strategies. So, not only in corneal infections, but generally in infections as such, there's a lot of developments going on. And these are the various things which have been proposed. That is next generation sequencing, smart probes for point of care use in resource limited countries can distinguish bacteria and fungal and start early treatment. So the smart probes are like peptides, which we are envisaging can be used even in the vision center level, in which the vision center sister can identify whether it's bacteria and fungus and start treatment there itself, and not even have that any kind of delay. Artificial intelligence cannot be far behind because we have this for everything. Now there's another proposal in which we are working on, in which the clinicians can do a gram stain themselves and using this AI, whether they can predict what ulcer is going to be. And finally, personalized medicine, again, with all these different tier markers, the proteomics help, we can identify how, especially for prognosis. So even for diagnosis, we don't need this, but for prognosis, it's really making such a big difference if you realize what mRNAs the patient is having, those kind of things. So we just got these two papers published recently in Ophthalmology 1 and in AJO 1. So the first one is on next generation sequencing, which, to put it in a very simple term, you don't have to have a priori knowledge of whether you are looking for bacteria or fungus. So this deep metagenomic deep sequencing would sequence any DNA which is there in the specimen. Human DNA, bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, all the DNAs can be sequenced. And with the help of bioinformatic tools, we can shortlist which is going to be the organism, and then also we can get the transcriptomic information also. The RNA information is also available to know how the patient's inflammatory markers are also playing a role in the infection, playing a role in the outcome of the infection. And this is a very interesting paper in which you're collaborating with the University of Edinburgh. So they have come up with the smart probes, and we have really see that there is a use for this in a point of care setup. So that's all which I have to